Charlotte Griffiths is editor-at-large of The Mail on Sunday and joins me live on the programme now. Thank you very much for joining us, Charlotte Griffiths. Much appreciated. It's difficult to know where to start. I mean, you have been talking about royal issues, I know, in various outlets throughout the sort of over the years, including in The Mail on Sunday. Do you want to start where you think is best, really? Just sort of reflect on the extraordinary events of today.
Well, I was so shell-shocked this morning because I was doing the usual Andrew coverage this morning, and then suddenly at 10 o'clock, I can't tell you, after years and years of royal reporting, even when the Queen died and everything, it was so shocking when I heard that he'd been arrested, and then I had to check the various online outlets to see if it was actually accurate. I really was genuinely surprised. So it's just been a day of absolute shock. And then the thing that's really topped it all off is that picture of him coming out tonight of the police station, which I think is it's actually quite a horrifying image. It's a frightening image. He looks frightened and he looks not very well. It's very unflattering. He's obviously trying to hide in the back of the car, which is something he's been doing for quite a lot of this year, including at his own granddaughter's christening. He had to hide in the back of the car. And obviously this picture was taken as he was trying to get down. I just think it's the most striking image I've seen in years and years of royal reporting, and one that sadly for him will be, well, I suppose, and for the monarchy, really, it'll be associated with him for years and years to come.
Well, I know that it's only February, but I do think that'll go down as the image of the year, won't it? And as I say, good for people to go to the LBC app or the LBC website to see it, among other places. And it's difficult, really, to almost describe it. I mean, as you say, that it's you obviously work in newspapers. It's going to be dominating all of the front pages, and I don't know, he doesn't look particularly well, as you said, and he looks like a man who is shell-shocked, and understandably, given the events, you can sort of understand why.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very harrowing picture, and, I have, a bit like Emily Maitlis was saying just now on your show, I think there has been some mental health issues going on in the background, and I think we do have to be quite careful. And I think she's right to say it's a grave situation. People have been very worried about his mental health. I know Princess Anne in particular and Edward have been quite worried that the king pushed it too far. But just as that narrative was building up, suddenly everything changed, and people thought actually he hadn't gone far enough. I mean, it is I have to say, it must be a roller coaster ride to be on if you're the king, if you're William, especially if you're Andrew. And this picture really sums it up. He just looks completely bewildered. And what I was hearing was that he was still completely in denial about all of this, really up until possibly even the point he was arrested. Don't forget, it was only a week ago, maybe it was 2 weeks now, that he was seen waving and smiling at people outside Royal Lodge, Windsor. And that was the straw that broke the camel's back, and that's what got him chucked out of Royal Lodge in the end, because he just couldn't take it in. He couldn't take in the gravity of the situation. He was trotting around on the horses around the Windsor Great Park Estate. But I think that picture shows that tonight, finally, after nearly 12 hours in custody, it's finally sunken in for him, and he's realised how much trouble he's in.
We heard the king being, maybe heckled's not necessarily the right word, but certainly there were people shouting questions. I imagine there were journalists at him, and it's something that we've become accustomed to, really, over the last few weeks, isn't it, of the king sort of people shouting questions and demanding answers. Noting that, of course, Andrew has always denied any wrongdoing when it comes to anything to do with the sort of whole litany of allegations, including, the one specifically now he hasn't commented on, but has always previously denied any allegations. But the sort of general impact on the royal family, Charlotte, your thoughts there? I mean, it's probably difficult to sort of summarise, but I'd be grateful if you would.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be absolutely horrifying for Charles to be shouted at like that. This is the second time he's been shouted at. William was shouted at about a week ago, and it is a massive break of protocol. And really, the last time it happened to Prince William was when Harry accused the royal family of being racist, and somebody said to William, "Are you a racist family?" And he actually, retaliated and said, "We are very much not a racist family." And I suppose that's what people are hoping, is that they shout at the Charles and William, that it will provoke some kind of response like that. But they've of course learnt from that incident, and they won't be doing that again. And Charles very much rebuffed any kind of words that came his way. But it's something they're really not used to. They're not used to being shouted at. So they'll find it horrifying. And the fact that it's so deeply humiliating, wounding, it will be a real cause of concern for Charles. And don't forget, he's still having cancer treatment. So I do hope he's not being too harassed. I mean, I noticed he managed to share a laugh today with Stella McCartney, who really managed to cheer him up. And he was very much doing the keep calm and carry on business as usual routine, which of course is what they do best. But it must be difficult when you know that you're going to leave an event and somebody might shout at you about your brother.
And just lastly on that, the international reaction as well probably feeds into that sort of general image of the royal family, because it is such of interest to various countries, given the legacy of the Commonwealth and everything, that these stories are going to ripple internationally.
Yeah, it's really embarrassing on the world stage because the monarchy has always been, of course, revered, especially when the Queen was still alive. And now it just feels like it's such a seedy situation and really the subject of ridicule abroad. It feels like that sort of gravitas that we're so used to with the monarchy has been slightly stripped away, and now they're kind of being jeered at. It's like a sort of medieval scene. Somebody's trying to throw tomatoes at them on the street, but instead of tomatoes, it's people on the world stage commenting on US media outlets. It's a shame really, because I just feel like the monarchy just no longer has the gravitas it once had, even yesterday.
Thank you, Charlotte, for your time. Much appreciated. That's Charlotte Griffiths, who's editor-at-large of The Mail on Sunday. Let's speak on the crime theme. Bring into the conversation now Shabnam Chaudhri, who is a former Detective Superintendent in the Metropolitan Police, and joins me. And Shabnam, I'm very grateful for your time. Thank you for joining us. Today, and again, let's note right from the start that Andrew denies any wrongdoing, has previously denied any wrongdoing, hasn't commented on these specific allegations, but noting that he has ultimately spent time in police custody today, it is a sort of a clear signal that in the UK, no one is above the law.
Yeah, good evening. Absolutely, no one is above the law, and it was only a matter of time before police actually did speak to him. So certainly today has been quite an eventful day for him and for the activity for the royal family themselves and the concerns that they've already expressed themselves.
And if we look at today, you may not know the answer to this, Shabnam, but you'll have a lot more of a clue than I. 6 police cars turned up at Andrew's address. I know that 1 was sort of round the front, 5 were round the back, which would seem to me to be standard procedure. I'm not sure why, but why did it require 6 police cars? Do we know?
Yeah, very interesting actually, because the other option, of course, would have been to have invited him in by invitation to be interviewed either under caution or to arrest him on arrival at the police station. But when you're talking about what has gone on previously in respect of the emails and the documentation and exchange of emails and so on, it's clear that there will be a significant amount of evidence that may be present at the address. So a number of police cars would have attended at the front and at the back. They would have taken no precautions. They would have treated it like any other arrest inquiry, for example, to ensure that all aspects of the address were covered. A number of officers attended with their cars because they would have conducted what you call a systematic search after his arrest, and having arrested him at his home address allowed them to then conduct a thorough search. I believe it's something like Section 18 or Section 18.5, I can't remember, but it's under the PACE codes in any case.
Right, but you wouldn't have a situation where he'd be invited in voluntarily in order for them to search the homes, or would that have been something that the police would have considered?
It was an option, but if they'd have invited him in voluntarily and he hadn't been arrested and he'd only been arrested dealt with under caution, that wouldn't have given them the power immediately to go and search his addresses. So it would make complete sense, bearing in mind there was another address that was also searched, which they would have had a warrant for. So they would have gone and searched both those addresses systematically, synchronise them, because they need to ensure that they preserve the best and of most available evidence immediately. And remember, they will be looking for laptops, documentation. There might be small discs or all sorts, because if it's evidence that dates back decades. Remember, technology and digital processes have changed, so you don't know exactly what you're looking for. So it would have taken a number of officers, exhibits officers that would have made notes, and officers that would have done the actual searching. So you might have two officers searching a room, start at different ends of the room, and then they come round and they meet together, and then they go back round to make sure that they haven't missed anything. It's a very well-trained and systematic process.
And as he was sort of pressing his cafetiere down at 8 o'clock this morning, would you have any inkling that officers were on their way? Do you get any sort of heads up?
Absolutely zero inclination. So it would have come as, look, he may well have been expecting it at some point, but for sure he would not have known what was happening. It would have been almost like a covert operation. It would have been pre-planned in the last few days or weeks with regards to how the evidence is progressing, what the police actually have in their possession, and what they need for suspicion in order to be able to go and arrest him as in the way that they did.
Of course, his birthday as well. So, I mean, I don't think he was expecting it at all, which again shows you that the law operates without fear nor favour. So we've spoken about, obviously, Andrew and the sort of notice or lack thereof that he would have got from officers. It's been confirmed that the police did tell the Home Office or certain officials at the Home Office 30 minutes before, sort of administratively, so they were aware. So there'd be a very select few people who would know Shabnam, is what I'm trying to get at. Would you imagine that the Chief Constable Thames Valley would obviously have knowledge, certain officers at Thames Valley, certain people in the Home Office, so they're aware of what's going on, but presumably, as we've heard, not the King. He wouldn't have been given any inside track.
Absolutely not, because what you've got to look at also, if that kind of information leaked out that the police had informed the King, then that would completely prejudice the investigation, potentially the search, any further evidence. So it has to be kept under wraps, so to speak. They've informed the Home Office for the reasons that they need to, because of the fact that it's such a high-profile case, and because we're talking about, ex-royalty, the fact that it's in the public interest for starters. Local officers wouldn't have known either. So when you're talking about these officers that attended, these are elitist, specialist trained officers that would have attended, that would not have had any connection to those local officers. And I'm not saying that's 100%, but that is the likelihood. Local officers would not have known about what was going on at 8 o'clock this morning when the police turned up at his address. And neither would those officers where they've gone from Thames Valley Police into the custody suite. They would have been warned immediately that the arrest had taken place, that they needed that custody space, or they may have been pre-warned that there is going to be some arrest. They need to ensure that there's a vacant cell in order to be able to process the prisoner at the time.
Now, we know we've seen these pictures, and we've spoken at length about these pictures. Certainly the picture of Andrew coming out of Aylsham Police Station in Norfolk that was about 7 o'clock our time. He has been pictured, as I mentioned, returning to the Sandringham estate where he's living at the moment, currently living in Wood Farm, although his technical home is Marsh Farm, but that's not quite ready. Nonetheless, he's returned to Sandringham. Silly question, but what sort of happens now? Obviously, this is sort of the kickstart of the investigation, is it?
Yeah, so I suspect that what would have happened today is you have primary disclosure and secondary disclosure. So the likelihood is, with the information in the evidence that they have, they may have put some questions to him. They may have interviewed him, but not pure, lengthy hours and hours of interviews. So they would have interviewed him, then they would have made a decision to release him under investigation. Now, there's a difference between release under investigation and bail. So if they bail him, they have to bail him with a date. But because this is going to be a complex, lengthy, protracted investigation, they've released him under investigation, which means he doesn't need to go back to the police station for any further interviews or charges, whichever, until such time as the police then contact him again to say, OK, we need you to come back to the police station, and they'll go back and then they'll continue with their investigation. Thames Valley Police have released a statement today. I doubt that you will hear very much more. If you look at what's happened with Peter Mandelson, for example, nothing more has been mentioned. because the police will continue their investigations, and I suspect that this is going to be very, very lengthy, so you probably won't hear much more now for a very long time.
Thank you, Shabnam. Shabnam Chaudhri is former Detective Superintendent in the Metropolitan Police, reflecting on the sort of policing angle as we've seen today.